All right, so today we're going to tackle MRA Holdings,
Hi.
a company I'm sure many of you have heard of, especially if you follow the world of Bitcoin mining and all that,
Yeah.
digital assets, all of that.
Absolutely.
You guys send over a ton of research on this company. Like we are talking in-depth reports,
Yeah.
real-time financial data news articles.
It's a lot going on.
A lot going on.
Yes.
So we're going to try to cut through the noise and give you a clear picture of, what's really driving this company.
For sure.
What are their core operations? Who are the people in charge? And what are some of the, key numbers
Exactly.
that we need to be paying attention to? So,
Just into it.
yeah, let's just dive right in. What really stands out to me initially looking at MRA is that
Yeah.
it's not just a Bitcoin mining company.
Right. They've moved so far beyond that initial, concept of just mining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Obviously, they are using a lot of computing power to secure the Bitcoin network and earn those coin rewards.
Right.
And that tie to Bitcoin's price is obviously so crucial. Yeah.
But they've layered on these really fascinating strategies on top of that.
Right. And it's not just about the mining rigs
Exactly.
and the hardware. It's more than that. I mean, we're seeing
Yes.
like a movement towards what they're calling utility scale computing.
Right.
And it sounds like they're really trying to leverage, this massive data center infrastructure to make money from excess power capacity.
Yeah, monetize that excess capacity.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Then there's the energy harvesting aspect as well.
Right.
Where they're talking about converting, unconventional energy sources into electricity to power their operations.
Which is huge because energy is one of their largest costs.
Yeah.
So they can control that.
Right.
And even provide that as a service to others.
Yeah.
That could be a big part of their business going forward.
Yeah. And so it really speaks to a company that's
Yes.
actively addressing, the energy demands and the cost pressures
For sure.
of this industry. Absolutely.
And then on top of that, we have their development of proprietary technology.
Yeah. Yes.
The liquid immersion cooling.
Right.
And the custom firmware.
The two-phase immersion cooling.
Yeah.
They're really pushing the envelope on that.
Yeah.
And not only are they using it for themselves, but they're offering it to other companies.
Right. So they're not just users of technology, they're creators of technology.
Exactly.
It opens up.
It's a smart move.
Yeah. New revenue streams positions them as, more than just a mining operation.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget their long-term vision of, acquiring computing for and holding digital assets, primarily Bitcoin.
Right. I mean, they are.
They're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, they're not trying to just, mine it and sell it immediately.
Right.
They're accumulating a big hoard of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and this is where their vertical integration strategy really becomes, super important.
Yes, this is crucial.
Because they're making moves to own and operate more of their foundational elements.
Yes.
So they're acquiring data centers.
Yeah.
They're investing in a wind farm in Texas.
Which is a real
to control their energy and infrastructure.
Smart move because Texas has very favorable regulations when it comes to Bitcoin mining and energy.
Right. And it helps them achieve greater cost efficiency.
Absolutely.
And a more, sustainable approach.
And they've been talking a lot about that sustainability angle.
Yeah.
Which is
good to see.
Becoming increasingly important, I think.
Yeah. So just to kind of list out their key activities.
Yeah.
It's Bitcoin mining at the core. Then we have the utility scale computing.
Right.
The energy harvesting initiatives.
Yes.
Their technology suite of cooling and firmware.
Yes.
And then their strategic Bitcoin reserves.
That's it. That's the breakdown.
Yeah. And within this, competitive landscape, MIRA is a big player.
Oh, yeah. They're one of the largest Bitcoin miners in the world. As of February 2025, they were the second largest publicly traded corporate holder of Bitcoin.
Wow.
They have a huge hash rate, which is essentially just a measure of how much computing power they've dedicated to mining Bitcoin.
Right.
And all this translates to a very significant market cap.
So no doubt they're a force to be reckoned with in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Oh, yeah.
And they're playing a vital role in securing the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah.
Which is, fundamental to how Bitcoin operates.
Absolutely.
And I really like this part of their story, this focus on turning underutilized energy into economic value.
Yeah, that's a compelling narrative.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on to the people who are leading this company.
Okay, sounds good.
The folks who are guiding, this complex operation.
So at the top, we have CEO Fred Thiel.
Okay.
He's got over 25 years of experience in the tech and finance sectors.
Wow.
And he really talks a lot about creating shareholder value. And his track record includes some pretty significant capital raising.
Wow.
Yeah. Alongside him is CFO Salman Khan.
Okay.
Strong background in finance and accounting.
Got it.
Including experience at companies listed on the NASDAQ.
Okay, so on the surface, it looked like a very capable leadership team.
It does seem that way.
Yeah. But when we start to dig into recent trading activity,
Uh-oh.
a bit of a pattern emerges.
What's that?
That, I think, warrants closer attention.
Okay.
And that is that there's been more selling than buying of MRI stock
Okay.
by both CEO Thiel and CFO Khan,
Interesting.
as well as other directors.
Okay, and these sales happened.
So these sales occurred roughly between, August 2024 and March 2025.
Got it.
And across a range of share prices.
Okay, so it wasn't just like one big sell-off.
Right.
It was over a period of time.
Right. And insider selling can have different motivations.
Of course, right. It could be personal financial planning.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they need to diversify their portfolio. Who knows?
Well, it could raise some questions.
It could for investors that are, really focused on long-term value.
Yeah.
It could raise questions about,
The
leadership's near-term confidence in the company's prospects.
Exactly. And it makes you want to think about, okay, how significant is the volume of these sales relative to their total holding?
Yeah, exactly right. Are they dumping all their shares, or is it,
right,
a small percentage?
Exactly.
So that's something to look into.
Now, on the other hand, CEO Thiel has often spoken about his, experience in navigating economic downturns.
Oh, that's interesting.
And MRAA has continued to invest and expand its operations.
Okay.
Even during periods of, significant Bitcoin price volatility.
So they're not afraid to kind of double down when things get a little shaky.
Right. So this could suggest, a strategic long-term conviction.
It could, yeah.
And a willingness to, weather market fluctuations.
Yeah. And I think that's something that investors in this space really need to look for, because Bitcoin is so volatile.
Yes.
That you need a management team that
can handle it.
That can ride the waves and not panic.
And Emory's efforts and transparency are also worth noting.
Oh, absolutely.
They regularly provide updates on their Bitcoin production.
Yeah.
The performance of their mining operations. And they engage with shareholders through letters and earnings calls.
So they're pretty open about what they're doing.
Yeah, this level of openness
Yeah.
is generally seen as a positive thing.
Transparency is good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about their history.
Okay.
MRA wasn't always, synonymous with Bitcoin mining.
Right. They've had a bit of an evolution, haven't they?
They have. They evolved from Marathon Patent Group, which is a parent company of Unilock. And this is a firm that sometimes drew criticism as a patent assertion entity.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So while their core business has fundamentally changed, this past might still be, in the minds of some ethically minded investors.
Right. I mean, a company's history, no matter how much they've changed, can still affect how investors view them today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think when we look at the management team as a whole, we do see, experienced individuals at the helm.
Yes, definitely.
But this recent trend of insider selling, does add a layer of complexity.
It does make you wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
It does.
That necessitates, I think, ongoing monitoring.
Right.
To understand their alignment with, shareholder interests.
Absolutely. It's all about following the money.
Right. All right. So we've looked at the business model. We've looked at the leadership.
Okay.
Now let's turn our attention to the financial health of MRA Holdings.
Let's look at the numbers.
Look at the numbers, the nitty-gritty.
So as of mid-March 2025, MRA's market capitalization was somewhere between $4.21 billion and $4.56 billion.
Okay. A pretty sizable market cap.
It is.
Their price-to-earnings ratio, which we often call the PE ratio,
P,
was between 7.01 and 8.86. Interesting. Now, a lower PE can sometimes be interpreted as undervaluation.
Especially in a sector like cryptocurrency, where there's so much growth potential.
It can also, reflect the market's assessment of the inherent risks.
For sure, because risk and reward are always related.
Exactly.
Higher risk, higher potential reward.
Exactly. And they did report some really impressive revenue growth in 2024.
Oh, yeah. What were the numbers?
A substantial 69% increase year over year.
Wow, that's impressive.
With record high revenue figures for both the fourth quarter and the entire year.
So they're firing on all cylinders.
And projections suggest This growth is expected to continue into 2025.
That's great to hear.
So that's
investors.
really good.
Absolutely.
Net income also reached record highs for those periods.
So they're not just growing revenue, they're also becoming more profitable.
Right.
That's important.
Which is key.
Yeah.
But when we look at the reported net profit margins, some sources present some exceptionally high figures.
Oh, really? How high are we talking?
Like even exceeding 200% in some cases.
200%? That's eye-popping.
Yeah, so that's
it.
something that requires further scrutiny.
For sure. Margins at that level can sometimes indicate, unsustainable factors.
Yep.
Or specific accounting treatments that, need a deeper dive.
Absolutely. You always want to dig beyond those headline numbers.
Always.
Okay, so let's talk about their debt situation.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one.
How leveraged is this company?
So their debt-to-equity ratio is around 54%.
Okay.
Which puts them in the moderate to high leverage category.
Okay.
That means they've got a significant amount of debt relative to their shareholder equity.
Right.
Which obviously increases their financial risk.
Because if things go south.
Right. If Bitcoin crashes.
Yeah.
They've got those debt payments to make.
Exactly. And what about their ability to generate cash?
Right. That's the key question.
Are they bringing in more money than they're spending?
So this is where it gets a little bit murky. Some sources indicate a positive free cash flow.
Okay.
While others suggest a negative operating cash flow.
Interesting.
So there's conflicting data.
Yeah.
And this really underscores the need to look closely at their cash flow statement to determine, their true ability to generate cash from their operations.
Okay, so further investigation is needed there.
For sure.
What about their price-to-book ratio?
Okay, so the price-to-book ratio is hovering around 1.02 to 1.09.
Okay.
Which means that the market is currently valuing the company's assets at roughly their book value.
Okay, so just to kind of sum up the financial picture.
Yes.
We see, strong recent profitability, impressive revenue growth.
Yeah.
But the high level of debt and the conflicting cash flow reports are definitely, potential yellow flags.
Absolutely things to keep an eye on.
Okay, so now let's talk about how the market perceives MRA holdings.
All right. Market sentiment.
Market sentiment.
So market sentiment surrounding MRI is a bit mixed.
Okay.
Which isn't surprising given how volatile and speculative the crypto market is.
Right.
We see a whole range of opinions from financial analysts.
Yeah.
Some are bullish, some are neutral, and some are even bearish.
Okay, so no clear consensus.
No, not at all.
And this is also reflected in the stock's price.
Oh, yeah. The stock price has been all over the place.
Yeah, it's been fluctuating quite a bit.
As you would expect.
Yeah. One thing we noticed is a significant level of short interest in Marai's stock.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what does that tell us?
So a high short interest, which for MRI has been reported between 24% and 32% of the outstanding shares.
Wow.
Suggests that a lot of investors are betting on a decline in the stock price.
Okay.
And this often reflects, concerns or skepticism about the company's future performance or valuation.
So they think it's overvalued?
Essentially, yeah.
Interesting. But what about the analysts who are actively covering the company? What are their price targets suggesting?
So interestingly, the average price targets set by analysts tend to indicate a potential upside from the stock's current trading price, which is around $13.
Right.
We're seeing average targets in the $22 to $25 range.
So there's a potential for some gains.
There is.
Okay.
But it's crucial to look at the dispersion of these targets. The gap between the highest and lowest estimates is huge.
What's the range?
We've seen analysts with targets as low as $14 and others as high as $45.
That's a massive range.
It is a massive range, and that just highlights the uncertainty and the very different perspectives among analysts.
Right, so they don't really know where it's going?
It's hard to say.
And which firms are providing these views?
So we've got firms like Rosenblatt, Piper Sandler, Barclays, H.C. Wainwright & Co., B. Riley Securities, J.P. Morgan, Cantor Fitzgerald.
So a mix of well-known names.
Yeah, a lot of big names in the industry.
And they've issued a mix of buy, overweight, neutral, and equal weight recommendations.
Right. So again,
no clear consensus.
No clear consensus.
What kind of recent news events have been influencing market sentiment?
So some of the key drivers have been their announcements of record revenue and net income.
Okay.
Their regular updates on Bitcoin production volumes.
Got it.
and news about their debt financing activities.
Okay.
So generally, positive financial news tends to have a favorable impact on the stock price.
Makes sense.
But as always, the overarching movements in Bitcoin's price
Yeah.
can really overshadow anything else.
Yeah, because they're so closely tied.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the high short interest, which suggests bearish sentiment.
Right.
But what about activity in the options market?
Okay, yeah. The options market can give us some interesting insights.
Yeah.
So despite the high short interest,
Okay.
there's been some pretty significant activity in the options market,
Like what?
with some investors buying a lot of call options. And this suggests that some traders believe the stock has the potential to move up significantly.
Okay.
So you've got this interesting dynamic.
Yeah, a little bit of a tug of war.
Yeah, a tug of war between the bears and the bulls.
Okay, so let's talk about who actually owns MRA holdings.
All right, ownership structure.
Ownership structure.
So institutional ownership is pretty substantial,
Okay.
ranging from about 50% to 61% of the outstanding shares.
So a majority stake.
Yeah, a majority stake is held by big institutions like BlackRock, Vanguard Group, Bank of America.
Wow.
So these are sophisticated investors with a lot of resources.
Yeah.
And their involvement can sometimes be seen as a vote of confidence in the company.
Well, what about the stake held by the company's insiders?
Right, the management team, the board members. So
Yeah.
insider ownership is actually quite low.
How low are we talking?
Less than 1% of the total outstanding shares.
Wow. So they own a very small piece of the company.
Yeah, and as we discussed earlier, there's been more selling than buying by those key executives,
Right.
including the CEO and CFO.
So that's something investors are going to pay attention to.
Absolutely.
So we have these large institutions holding a significant portion,
Yes.
while the insiders themselves have a very small stake,
Yeah,
have been net sellers recently.
that's the situation.
Is the ownership concentrated among a few large holders?
It does appear to be somewhat concentrated.
Okay.
A handful of those big institutional investors hold a large chunk of the shares.
Got it. And what about corporate governance?
So in terms of corporate governance, MARA seems to follow standard practices.
Okay.
They've got independent directors, they've got an audit committee,
Okay.
which are generally seen as positive for
Sure.
accountability.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
Let's try to synthesize all of this
Okay.
by doing a SWOT analysis,
All right, I like it.
looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing MARA holdings.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the strengths.
Into strengths,
They benefit from their large-scale Bitcoin mining operations.
right?
Their focus on low-cost and increasingly sustainable energy sources.
Yes.
Their proprietary technology and expertise.
Mhm.
Their substantial holdings of Bitcoin.
Right.
And their ongoing, efforts to increase their vertical integration.
So they've got a lot going for them.
They do. Now, what about their weaknesses?
Weaknesses.
Well, a major one is their reliance on the volatile price of Bitcoin.
Right.
They also have a substantial level of debt.
Yes.
Their historical earnings have been a bit inconsistent,
Mhm.
and the low insider ownership coupled with that recent selling activity could be a concern for some investors.
Makes sense.
Okay, now let's talk about the opportunities that they might be able to capitalize on.
Okay, opportunities.
The crypto mining market itself has strong growth potential.
It does.
Their diversification into areas like energy and potentially AI
Right.
could be huge.
Yep.
Greater regulatory clarity in the crypto space would be great.
Absolutely. That would provide some stability.
Yeah, and the increasing adoption of Bitcoin by institutional investors
Right.
could further benefit them.
So a lot of potential upside.
A lot of potential. And finally, what are some of the threats they need to navigate?
Okay. Threats. So the volatility of crypto prices is always there.
Right, that's a
Well,
constant.
it's always a threat.
The increasing difficulty of Bitcoin mining and, the competition.
Yeah, the competition's getting fierce.
Yeah, could put pressure on their margins.
For sure.
Evolving and potentially unfavorable regulations
Right.
pose a risk.
Yeah, the regulatory landscape is constantly changing.
Yeah. Environmental concerns related to the energy consumption of mining
Yes.
could lead to increased costs or even restrictions.
Right. ESG concerns are becoming more and more important.
Yeah, and of course the potential for, disruptive technological advancements.
Always, right? Someone could come up with a more efficient way to mine Bitcoin, and that could disrupt the whole industry.
Yeah. Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what is the key takeaway here?
So we looked at Emera Holdings,
Yeah.
a company in a high growth but highly volatile sector.
For sure.
They've got strong recent financial performance.
Yeah.
And they're well positioned to capitalize on some big opportunities.
Yeah.
But they're also facing considerable risks.
Yeah.
Especially tied to Bitcoin's price and their debt level.
Right.
Management seems experienced, but that insider selling is something to watch.
Definitely.
And market sentiment is mixed, even though analyst price targets suggest there could be some upside.
Yeah, it's a really interesting case study.
It is a fascinating company.
Yeah, so we've taken a really comprehensive look at Emera Holdings.
Yeah.
Their business, their leadership, their financial standing.
All the important stuff.
Yeah, considering, their ambitious endeavors in this ever-evolving cryptocurrency landscape.
Right.
And their push towards greater energy independence.
Yeah.
How do you, as the listener, reconcile the potential for significant returns with these inherent uncertainties?
Yeah.
And, the principles of value investing that we've discussed today.
Yeah, it's the big question.
Yeah, what new questions has this exploration sparked for you about making investment decisions in these, dynamic and transformative industries?
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
For sure.
If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to explore other companies and sectors with us, make sure to subscribe to the Stockalytics AI YouTube channel.
Absolutely. We've got a lot more deep dives coming your way.
And as always, please remember that this discussion is for informational purposes only.
Yes.
It's not financial advice.
Not at all.
Do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Always.
You might find some interesting stock discussions in the comments section.
Oh, yeah. Definitely check out the comments.
Although those are separate from our analysis today.
Right.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into MRI Holdings.
Thanks,
It's been a pleasure.
It has.
All right. We'll see you next time.